Okay. Hey, welcome back everybody. Today I'm going to do a tier list of all the iPhones that are out today. If this video does good, I'll do it again when the iPhone 14's come out. But I thought this would be a little fun to do. Now see here, we can actually get all of the iPhones here. Except for now that I think of it, they don't have the SE3. Which, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But SE3 would be an F tier for sure for me anyway. So what I think we should start with the original iPhone. So no, it's not an F tier, but so the iPhone TG. What did it bring? It was the first mainstream multi-touch display. It had a camera. It was like an iPod. It was a game changer. It changed all phones from the future on. So obviously, I feel like this is an S tier because without it, I mean, who knows what phones would look like today if the iPhone never existed? I mean, maybe we'd get touch displays later, but like not for a few more years, and we would have obviously not gotten this far with our phones. Now, the 3G. This phone sucks. It literally didn't improve much. So, with the three main complaints they had with this phone was a bad camera, didn't have 3G, and it wasn't cheap. This fixed two of those. It was cheaper and it gave it 3G, but these things should have just been the original iPhone. This had the same processor, same display, same camera. It just sucked. So I think that's an F tier. So already we have, I can do this, that might be better. So already we have very different sides of the spectrum. Now the 3GS, this was actually the first great iPhone because it not only did it improve so much, but it was like a decent phone. So, we got a better camera. We could autofocus for the first time. We could video record for the first time. And it had a type of Siri. It was voice control. And it got up to iOS 6, a really long lifespan support, and it still runs pretty smoothly on iOS 6. It still runs 3G, and 3G is shut down, so technically all of these phones don't work today if you were trying to use them. But this was a decent phone, and I think it's at least a B tier. iPhone 4. Most people would obviously jump to having it be S tier because what was really wrong with it? It was had a great display, great camera. I actually filmed some YouTube videos, not on this channel, of course, but I filmed stuff on this phone. I did a lot of stop motions and stuff on this phone when I first had it. It was my first iPhone, so obviously I want to put it up high, right? But just thinking about all the bad things for a minute. It had antenna gate. They obviously fixed that a few months later. They obviously didn't want that to happen. It wasn't supposed to be it wasn't like, oh, we're purposely going to make it bad. But this phone, I mean, yes, it was good, but it had a couple flaws. But so I think it's an A tier product. Now for the 4S, this is the first one I think that it started out good, but it went downhill actually. So the 4S, it improved everything that the 4 did besides the display. It had an even better camera, even faster processor, and Siri. Siri obviously hasn't gotten really much far, and most people would hate Siri today. So people would just rather have Google Assistant. But they thought it was so good that they actually gave it a lot of iOS support that it probably shouldn't have gotten. It got up to iOS 9, and now it's really slow and buggy. So it started out good, but then went downhill really quickly. So I think it's a C or a D tier. Maybe we'll change that in a minute, but we'll see here. Okay. The 5 should be first, but in 2012, this is the last iPhone by Steve Jobs. Yeah. I mean, what more to say? It's the last iPhone by Steve Jobs. Obviously, it should be an S tier product, right? Well, I mean, it wasn't that great. It had, yes, a faster processor, but it wasn't that much faster. It even got like only one more year than the 4S, and it still runs decently on iOS 10. But it has a great design. Obviously, it was even most people love that design, the small form factor and everything. I don't have one with me, but yeah, I am looking for one on iOS 6 one of these days. But I think that this is probably an A tier product, and you'll see why in a minute. The 5C. Now people will be like, oh, a lot of people would just be like, F tier, yeah, F tier. But no, I think it is actually a C tier. 5C, C tier. Here's why. Yes, it didn't improve much over the 5, but it actually got better battery life. And yes, I think the one, if I could change one thing about the 5C, it wouldn't be anything like the faster processor, better camera, or it would maybe the price. Probably would have changed the price. It's kind of a little on the higher side, but I think if they added a black option, this phone would have sold better. Most people like for the more muted whites and black colors. So obviously, if they had a black color option with the 5C, I think it would have done much better than it actually did. So I think it's a C tier product. Most people, yeah. I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this one, but I still do think it's better than the 4S and the 3G. We haven't had an E tier, so here's the 5S. I am just gonna put it right up here. I think it is a perfect product. Honestly, it was like perfect. It had no flaws, and it was just good. It had better color options because they fixed the color options with the 5 that got kind of ruined. It had Touch ID, which is still people want on the new iPhones just because it was just so ahead of its time. It was the first like Touch ID sensor. And it had a fast chip that got up from iOS 7 to iOS 12, which was the longest supported iPhone until the 6S beat it just this year. And it got the same amount of support as the iPhone 7 did just this last year, too. Now, the 5S was a perfect design. It was a flagship phone. Obviously, by this time, most people had their bigger displays, so this was a small display for the time, but I think it was a perfect product. Now, for the iPhone 6. This is also 6 and 6 Plus, because I don't really have. They're going to be the same pretty much. Now, the 6 normal didn't get the optical image stabilization, but besides that, it was pretty much the same phone, just bigger screen, better battery life on the Plus. But this phone, it sold like hotcakes, basically. And, okay, yeah, that's great, but it also had Bendgate, touch disease, and it didn't get a lot of software support, which I think it probably could have ran iOS 13. They just didn't want it to because that phone was so flawed in Apple's eyes that they didn't even like it, and so they wanted to get rid of it as soon as they could. And so that's why I think that's a D tier product, actually. Actually, we'll put it C tier just because of how great and success it was. It's it's probably honestly the 5C is probably better than the 6 in my opinion. Now the 6S, it fixed all those flaws in just a year. It got better aluminum. It longest supported iPhone, 3D Touch, which we don't have anymore, and forced phone to do 4K. And so I think this is easily a B tier product. It's it was still supported and it still will be until this September, and it will probably get security fixes. But that's 7 years. I don't think we're getting another iPhone that's going to get 8 or 9 years, and I think 7 years will be. I think the iPhone 8 might get 6 or 7 years, but I don't think it's ever. I don't think any iPhone's getting past 7 years. I think the 6S just proved it. iPhone 7. This is another one that people are gonna hate me for, but obviously, how many of you guys still use a headphone jack these days? Exactly, like 10% of my viewers probably do, which is I know kind of a lot, but uh. and they're probably only because of techie people. But like this headphone jack is pretty much gone these days. Besides for MacBooks, I don't know why they still keep it on it. Um, so yeah, there is no iPhone on iOS that has a headphone jack. There's iPad OS, which is a few iPads, but yeah, I think this had wireless charging, telephoto camera on the Plus model, stereo speakers, which I could not live without these days, and it had a better chip, which didn't get it more iOS support, but I think it's at least the same as the 6S. It would just 6 was bad, and then they improved it. Just they perfected the iPhone 6's design. This really should have been the iPhone 6 to begin with. Better design, better everything, pretty much. iPhone 8. Now that we know that this is going to get iOS 16, now that can kind of help us with this. All these products so far are going to be unsupported after the end of this year. So, iPhone 8, where should it go? It had brought wireless charging and a new chip and different storage options. It wasn't really a big thing, but with its improvement with iOS 12 and its speediness and iOS 13 and iOS 14, 15, and now 16, it's going to get all the features besides my favorite one. So honestly, I think even though it's a great product, iPhone 10 is going to be up here. So I don't know. Yeah, I think that is where a good spot for it to be. Oh, before we do iPhone 10, I forgot about this SE. The iPhone SE, the first generation. I think it's an A tier product. It proved upon the 5S, but it had all the flagship features of the 6S, and it was pretty much better because of that, because you could get it for cheaper, and if you could hold up with the battery life and display, the SE was perfect, honestly. So I think that is an A tier product right there. Then now for the iPhone 10, it is S tier product. I think the S tier products are things that change it forever. The 2G, they even said in the iPhone 10 keynote, lasted them 10 years. The iPhone 10 is going to last the next 10 years, they said. So I don't even know what they will do in 10 years. That's kind of a weird thing for them to say. Like, we're going to have this for the next 10 years. But I know the i5S kind of looks out of place between these two products then, but this one actually had, the 5S had Touch ID, which helped all the way up until iPhone 10 was released, and now Face ID is going to be the norm for ever on. These are the first ones with their biometrics. Password, passcode, Touch ID, Face ID. Now, the 10R, it had a lot of criticism that it did not need whatsoever. I think it is better than this 5C because it's a cheaper iPhone 10, but it wasn't that cheap. I think it was regular price tag. Now it replaced the iPhone 8, which had the same display, so I don't know why they were complaining about it not being 1080p because it just replaced the iPhone 8. It wasn't supposed to replace the iPhone 10. So I think it is a good B tier product. It's improved on everything that iPhone 8 needed, and obviously it's like, if anything, it's like in between the iPhone. It's 8, 10R, 8 Plus. I feel, even though I personally would have an 8 Plus over the iPhone 10R, but this is improving upon the iPhone 8, not the 8 Plus. The 10s. Now, I know some people in my subscriptions do not like this phone. F tier product. I don't think so. It was the last phone with 3D touch. I have had no problems with my iPhone 10s. Everybody says, oh, it has terrible battery life. It's just not a reliable phone. But I've lived with this phone, and you're going to get a review this September when I get my 14. I'll review this phone before I sell it or something. I don't know. But this phone, I think, is really good. It brought on a plus phone, so the iPhone 10 wasn't just one size. It was kind of smaller, and then it had the plus size. Last phone with 3D touch, I might have said that, actually had better cameras. They were actually like saying how it has like great HDR and exposure, and it wouldn't look like, the sky wouldn't look like weird or anything. But obviously, I don't think it's good as the 10R. I think it's iPhone 8 type of realm right there. I haven't had an E tier product yet. That's kind of interesting though. Um, iPhone 11. So it's obviously gonna be a B tier or better because this one's just the 10R, but obviously way better. Better chip, better cameras, better battery life. Obviously, and after everybody complained about this display, who's gonna be complaining about the display this year? And it got cheaper during all of that. I think that's an easy A tier product. I want to know who's actually gonna be disagreeing with me on that. So. And then we got the 11 Pros here. The iPhone 11 Pro. I think it's just as good as the 11. I mean, it had even better battery life than the 10s. It had better cameras than the 10s, which already had great cameras. And then a better chip, just like the 11. So I think it is just on par with the iPhone 11s. I think those were great, great, great phones. I'm almost want to put it in S tier. It's that good. So wait, let's like rank these. I think it should go 5, SE, 11. I know, it's kind of sad that 11 has to be over there, but it just, actually iPhone 4 should be up here. And then, yeah, I think that's the good order. The iPhone 7 is probably the best, then the 6S, then the 10R, and I think the iPhone 8 was the best. Probably like that. Anyway, so now we're getting close to the last few iPhones here. iPhone 12. It was definitely better than the iPhone 11, but it wasn't. The iPhone 10R to the 11 had major improvements. The 11 to the 12, and it just pretty much 5G and a new display, and it got a price hike. So that wasn't that great. So I think it's kind of 10R level. People were kind of a little, yay, it's cool, but it's like, we have a lot of them on this little area here, but anyway, SE2, um, SE2. Okay, so at the beginning of its life, it was $50 cheaper than the iPhone 8 it replaced. It had a better chip and better cameras. People were like, "Oh yeah, it's pretty good." But then slowly people realized it didn't have good battery life. It had better than the iPhone 8. So while it wasn't a great phone, it was better than the iPhone 8, and it was $50 cheaper. It was only a problem when the iPhone 13s came out and they didn't lower the price, and it was still $400. I think the real reasons why they didn't lower it, the price of the iPhone SE2, is because they knew they had to raise it with the iPhone SE3. So at first this was a great phone, but it kind of got worse. So I think that is a D tier product. And the 12 Pro. Oh wait, yeah, I don't know why. Okay, yeah, sorry, but 12 Pro I think is an E tier product because the 11 Pro was so good that they couldn't really top it that fast. Yes, it had a better telephoto camera and um, and it had a new design, and the display was a bit bigger on both of them. It just wasn't what people were looking for. It had actually worse battery life, and 5G kind of made it worse. And yeah, I think that's just not a great product. I'm gonna do the 13 Pro first, just because I know it's gonna be an A tier product. Obviously, the S tier is revolutionary, changes everything. So these products down here are great phones. Besides that, so the 13 Pro, better battery life. I would go to say it's better than the 11 Pro right there. Better battery life, better display, better cameras. It is actually really praised for being a great phone, and people are actually looking to iPhones again, just because of like the last few years they've been changing it, and it's been like good. iPhone 13 regular is a C tier. I know it's kind of disappointing, but it had better battery life and a better chip. But because of the fact that it wasn't that much better than the 12, and the fact that the iPhone 14 is going to even have the same chip as this one, the iPhone 14's this one, yeah, it's just slowly going downhill with the regular models. It was great, 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 and it's just going slowly downhill with the regular models. And that is my tier list. You can obviously, here's the link up here. You could just screenshot it and use your live text to do that. And anyway, I you guys will probably disagree with me, but I would love show me on Instagram. I want to see what your tier lists look like, because I bet they're not as cool as mine. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and peace out.